Is Harvester the most violent game ever created? According to high-quality sources such as its own box art, yes. Harvester is an FMV horror game that came out in 1996, and it has received nothing but glowing reviews. Reviews such as, "This gratuitously violent game doesn't make much sense. Goriest, most confusing, and above all stupidest horror game ever. Conversations with characters are frustrating and often make little sense." I'm here to tell you this game is good actually, and its premise makes perfect sense. Unfortunately, Harvester did indeed flop for a reason when it initially released. And oddly enough, the reason that it flopped is actually the same reason why the story makes sense. We're going to get to that after we take a look at the game's narrative. Now, I know this little fella pops up before the start of all my videos, but Harvester is special and it's gonna get a second warning. I mean it, this game contains some extremely disturbing, violent, insensitive, and taboo themes. It is irreverent satire, so please take me seriously when I say that this one is not for the faint of heart. If this kind of thing isn't really up your alley, don't worry, it's okay. I'll catch you in the next one. For you brave soldiers that are choosing to continue on into the madness that is Harvester, let's get started. The first thing we see is our protagonist Steve waking up in a pretty ordinary looking bedroom. I want you to really take in this normality because this is the last time we're gonna be seeing that. Oh, a nasty stained bed, a recently watered plastic plant, binoculars that are melted to the table. Yeah, this all seems normal. We can overlook that. Stepping out into the living room, we immediately notice that things are looking pretty old-fashioned.
What?
Throughout the game, Harvester will give us a bunch of dialogue options. You can even type in custom responses. Since we don't know what's going on, why don't we ask this fine young gentleman who we are?
A lousy rat. And you better be quiet or you'll wake Daddy up.
Apparently, we've been spending all of our free time and attention on some girl. Because of this, he tells us to drop dead. Sounds like someone's a little jealous.
I don't know what girl you're talking about.
All summer, it's been Stephanie this and Stephanie that. And now you don't remember? You think I'm dumb or something?
No, I just can't remember anything, like I said.
Well, you better remember quick, because the wedding's in 2 weeks.
What?
Leave me alone so I can watch TV.
If you mention the retro decor to the kid, he seems pretty confused and says that everything looks normal. It also becomes quite apparent that the cowboy show he's watching on TV is extremely violent.
Hey, look at that. Your mother lets you watch this stuff?
Sure. This is part of history, what made America great. And besides, blood and guts are needed.
Little kids shouldn't watch that kind of violence.
Well, you can't stop me, so let me alone, or else.
Asking the kid about his father yields an interesting result.
He and Mom went at it last night pretty hard. He stayed in bed. I saw what she did to him. It was pretty bad.
What? We're just gonna move on from that. As it turns out, the kid's name is apparently Hank, and he is our little brother. Eventually, he gets sick of you interrupting his TV show.
Mom, Steve is bugging me.
Steve, leave Hank alone right now.
All right, I guess we'll go talk to Mom. Maybe she'll tell us what's going on. Things in the kitchen look pretty normal. There's a baby sleeping peacefully, and our mom is baking fresh cookies. Why are there so many cookies in the trash?
Well, hello there. How about some cookies? There's plenty of rejects in the trash.
Who are you?
That's a fine way to talk to your mother.
You're my mother?
That's right, though sometimes I get treated like the hired help around here.
I don't remember you.
Of course you don't, until you need your socks washed.
No, you don't understand. I can't remember where I am or even who I am.
Land's sake, stop your joshing, won't you? Honestly, Steve, I thought you'd grow up a little after graduation. I only hope that new job will plant your feet on the ground.
So that's my name. Steve.
Your name will be M.U.D. Mud if you don't stop teasing me, young man.
Listen, this may sound strange, but I've lost my memory. Do you believe me?
Well, you always were a kidder, Steve.
You might want to get used to hearing that line. It's pretty infamous with this game. Mom explains that she's cooking up all of these cookies for a charity bake sale that will help all of the homeless people that wander into the town of Harvest. Apparently, this bake sale is being hosted by The Lodge. Oh boy, I love lodges. Mom really likes lodges too.
What's so great about it?
Hard to say since hardly anyone gets inside, but it wouldn't be so exclusive if it wasn't just wonderful. Just like the new Reynolds dishwasher with their patented auto dry process TM. I've never used one, but I know I want it. Instead of sulking around the house all day, why not walk over to the lodge and apply for membership?
Clearly, Mom is pretty stoked at the thought of Steve possibly getting into the lodge. It's a big deal in Harvest, but lodge this, lodge that, we gotta ask the real hard-hitting questions around here, such as, if the bake sale is a week away, why is she baking cookies now?
Never put off till tomorrow what you can do today.
But they'll be stale by then.
That's why I'm throwing them away,
And then cooking more?
to replace the ones I throw out.
Why?
Well, I have to. No one's going to pay to eat stale cookies out of the garbage can.
But you expect me to.
Of course not, Steve. I wouldn't charge you. I'm your mother. Help yourself.
I mean, the cookies on top didn't even really touch the trash can. I'd take one. Also, even though we've established that this lady in the kitchen is Steve's mom and Hank is his little brother, he's for some reason very surprised to learn that the baby in the corner is his little sister.
Sister?
Shh, you'll wake her. I just put her down to sleep. If she wakes up, she'll just want to eat again.
Steve continues screeching about trivial things such as, I woke up and I have amnesia this, I don't know where I am that, there's a giant wasp by the baby, and I for one am happy he does, because it wakes the baby and brings us one of the most spectacular displays of MS Paint special effects I've ever seen.
Now you've done it. Are you happy? Poor baby. There. Did your brother scare you? Let me see. Darn that wasp woman. She's a monster, that's what she is.
If you ask about your other sibling Hank, there's a little line of dialogue that I actually think is pretty clever.
Your little brother is homesick from school today, and I won't have you scaring him with this amnesia poop.
Is he really sick?
Look at the show he's watching. Wouldn't you say he's sick? I'd make him stop, but oh, I'm so busy baking cookies for the Harvest PTA charity bake sale.
Mom also explains that there will be a blood drive in Harvest. Apparently, they get a lot of blood every year, and she ominously mentions that they don't use needles. So do you remember how I said you can type anything you want as a dialogue option? Well, of course the first word everyone's going to try.
What a thing to say to your mother. Was that an invitation now that your father is out of action?
What in the sweet home Alabama fuck? Fun fact, the developers had actually originally planned for Mom to strip down to her undergarments for that dialogue.
Don't forget to put the papers out for Jimmy. You know how he gets.
Ah, yes, Jimmy, probably one of my favorite characters. Every morning in Harvester, Steve will have to bring out the newspaper to this cute little fella.
Hey, Steve, I'm Jimmy James. Remember me?
I guess not.
Hey, how come you haven't been putting the paper out for me in the morning?
Mom wasn't kidding about how Jimmy can get. Jimmy is a ferocious little goblin. If you fuck around with him, you're gonna find out. Find out he's strapped. Sweet little Jimmy here only asks for two things. One, to remember to bring out the paper, and two,
Say, you got any spare sneakers?
walking the same paper route every day has worn out his shoes. He says he'll trade us a key for a new pair of sneakers. When you ask him what the key would be for, he elaborates that we could use it to open the broom closet at the school. But why would we want to get into the broom closet? Well, Jimmy says that the principal and a teacher, quote, mess around in there. If we caught them in the act, maybe we could blackmail them. I'm beginning to think that perhaps Jimmy has a troubled home life. There is an entire map of buildings and places we can check out and explore around the town of Harvest. I started with the Phelps General Store.
Can I help you, dear?
Who are you?
This is Phelps General Store, so who would that make me? Maybe you need to go back to Geen Memorial and have Miss Whaley teach you about logic.
I'm fuzzy on a lot of things these days. My memory's gone.
Pshaw, you always were a kidder, Steve.
I'm serious, I need some help.
Well, they say a sharp blow to the head is a good thing for amnesia, in which case I'd recommend Miss Whaley again. Then again, they say a good scare can jog the memory, in which case I'd advise you to visit the sergeant-at-arms over at the lodge. That man gives me the willies. Speaking of willies, how's your father?
Speaking of willies, how's your father? That's the funniest line that has ever been in a game. Mrs. Phelps has a variety of useful items for sale, such as a wrench, some rat poison, and an adult magazine.
A girly magazine? Why, Steve, I'm surprised at you. I'd expect that sort of thing from Deputy Loomis, but never from you. He's always coming in here oogling the girly magazines behind my counter. Darned if I'd sell him one, though. I know his wife, for heaven's sakes.
Well, will you sell me one?
I certainly will, Steve. That kind of interest is healthy for a young fellow. Stares him away from being a fireman.
Firefighter, huh? That seems kind of random. Maybe we should ask Mom about that. She mentions that the head firefighter's name is Sparky.
Cares about that prancing, fire hydrant squatting sissy boy right now. Your sister's eating a tarantula and you're still fooling around.
If she's my sister.
Enough! Go bother Hank or Stephanie, why don't you? I'm trying to bake cookies.
Okay, well, that was unhelpful. Let's go check out the post office where there's a blind woman trying to read her mail.
Yes?
I need some help. Mr.
Postmaster Boyle, what can I do for you today?
We need to ask Mr. Boyle for an application to the lodge.
Sorry, youngster, we're out of applications right now.
Come on, you must have one around here somewhere.
Well, I do have the master, but you can't write on that. And I only make copies once a month, on the button, regular as clockwork.
The postmaster says there's absolutely no way he can make a copy because it would be unfair to everyone else who has been waiting for an application. We'll have to figure out another way. At the town's barber shop, we meet three lovely gentlemen, Clem, Pete, and Mr. Pastorelli.
Hello there, youngster. You say them aliens I was telling you about? Well, they came back last night. Cut another crop circle in my south field.
How come I never seen none of them saucers, Clam?
Them aliens is wily, Pete. You don't cross the intergalactic void without learning a trick or two. You know what Pastorelli did? Yesterday, he gets an alarm system to protect his pole. Only he don't know how to rig it, so now it's all awry.
Clem has a crop circle problem. He goes on to tell us a bit about Mr. Pastorelli. He's an agreeable barber that doesn't understand English. In this final released version of the game, he actually never speaks. But in an early build of the game, he was originally supposed to say spoilers of the game's ending in Italian. This content was eventually cut so as not to ruin the game for any Italian speakers. Mr. Pastorelli has one beloved prized possession, his barber's pole. You can see it there hanging on the wall to the left, and oddly you'll notice that it's inside the building. This is because Mr. Pastorelli wants to protect his barber's pole at any cost. Clem and Pete tell us all about how he just rigged up a security system in the barbershop to protect it. However, they note that the wiring is a bit fucky because he didn't bother to hire an electrician to do it. This is actually relevant, I promise. Also, apparently Clem hunts aliens?
Son, after nailing an alien, you can never go back to quail. What? You think you can get one of those at a swap meet?
If I saw that at a swap meet, I'd buy it immediately. Clem has been doing most of the talking so far. Why don't we check in with Pete?
Change your mind about that aluminum siding?
What are you talking about?
I really think you should talk your father into buying some. He can afford it. And I can't stress enough the value of some really fine aluminum siding. Keeps it warm in the summer, cool in the winter, and it keeps out the sheep.
Oh great, this guy is obsessed with his failing aluminum siding business. Let's go check out somewhere else. How about a nuclear missile base? That sounds like fun and like nothing could go wrong. I'm sure this fine gentleman at the nuclear base is kind and well-adjusted. He ain't got no legs.
Colonel Buster Monroe, commander of the Harvest Nuclear Missile Installation, keeping America safe from those who would dye our flag red, white, and pink.
These are nuclear missiles?
Goddamn right they are. Every one of them ready to rain death on the Ruskies. All I gotta do is hit the button and blammo! The price of vodka goes through the roof. Along with the vodka.
Colonel Buster Monroe lost the entire lower half of his body in the war. The government deemed him too emotionally unstable after such trauma to continue in the military, so they put him in charge of nuclear missiles. He makes it very clear that there are no safeguards on these nukes. He is very jumpy, and it's extremely easy to make him nervous of you with dialogue options. If you get him even a little suspicious, this happens. Much like other characters around town, Buster will randomly bring up the firemen. His conversation about them without any context gets very bizarre very quickly.
I wanted to get back into the thick of the action and out of this desk job. Those firemen are a damn peculiar bunch of ladies. I thought they'd object to my lack of a lower body, but they wouldn't let me join the fire department because they said I couldn't draw naked men. Can't draw naked men? Who the hell wants to? I could draw one if I was a sick commie pervert. Look, I did this last night. What do you think?
A drawing of this caliber is the last thing I expected Harvest's Cotton Hill to hand me, but here we are. Next, we'll head to the Potsdam residence for more normal things to happen. This is where our supposed fiancé should be. Upon entering the house, we are immediately greeted with some observations. The ashtray is shaped like a particular human organ, which shall remain nameless. A photo of the man of the house squeezing his meat.
There he is, my future son-in-law. And how's he doing today? What brings him to the Potsdam household, huh? Huh?
Let's just tell him about the amnesia. I'm sure he'll believe us.
What a card.
Would I kid about something like that? Why won't you believe me?
Well, you always were a kidder, Steve.
Mr. Potsdam is our fiancé's father. He is obsessed with meat. Meat is almost all he talks about. Steve's dad owns and operates a slaughterhouse, and this has Mr. Potsdam very excited to see because his daughter will be marrying into the family. He literally never shuts up about meat. Another notable thing Mr. Potsdam mentions is that the scheduled wedding is going to have to take place at the local funeral parlor. This is distressing to him because he'd like to have the wedding at the lodge, but they keep denying his application. In the kitchen, Mrs. Potsdam gives us permission to go upstairs to see Stephanie. She looks exactly like our mother except for her hair, however, she doesn't seem to agree with that sentiment.
You're both standing around baking cookies. Same kind of dress, same pearls. So bizarre.
There's nothing bizarre about baking cookies. The Harvest Charity Bake Sale is Friday, you know, and by gosh, Mrs. Marvin Potsdam Jr. can be counted on to do her share.
Let's go check in with our loving fiancé.
Who are you? What are you doing in my room?
Oh, well, maybe not so loving. She doesn't seem to know who we are.
I mean, I don't know anyone. I don't remember anything. How many times do I have to say it?
Just one, Stephanie, because I can't remember a damn thing either.
Really? Oh God, I thought it was just me.
You're not alone. Can you tell me what's going on here?
Those people downstairs have locked me in my room. They say I'm grounded until the wedding.
Yes, it seems Stephanie has been locked in her room for a whole week. Like Steve, she doesn't remember anything or know anyone. She doesn't seem particularly excited about marrying Steve, who she doesn't know. She also seems to be the first person we've met so far that can recognize just how strange this town really is.
Every morning, a weird boy comes to the house and picks up the paper. He doesn't deliver the paper. He picks up scrap paper that Miss Potsdam sets out on the porch for him. Some mornings she forgets, and the boy gets furious. He gives me the creeps.
I know this woman ain't speaking ill of my good man Jimmy James. Stephanie also describes something a little disturbing going on.
I hear these weird scraping sounds in the bathroom sometimes. Like something is sliding along the wall. Claws, maybe.
Scraping claw sounds in the bathroom? We must investigate. I immediately regret investigating because the bathroom is kind of gross. The flavor text describes a thin layer of hair coating virtually every inch of ceramic. The rubber ducky is in disrepair, the towels are stiff, the sink is covered in pubic hair apparently, and the trash can is full of wadded up tissues that are stuck to the sides. I don't know what's going on in here, but it is not Christian. Oh, look, this picture moves. Oh. Oh, no.
Stephanie, I think you should know. There's a peephole hidden behind the picture in the bathroom.
You mean a peephole? They're spying on me?
I'm afraid so.
So that's the scraping I hear every night. The picture sliding along the wall. Disgusting. I've got to get out of here, Steve. The thought of that fat slob watching me.
I'll question Potsdam about it. Maybe if he knows I know, it'll scare him off.
Thank you, Steve. I don't know what I'd do without you.
That is absolutely foul. We are marching downstairs right now to confront the meat man about this.
You've got a peephole in the upstairs bathroom. It looks in on Stephanie's room.
Well, I'll be darned.
You can respond to this debacle in a few different ways. For example, you can blame the peephole on Mrs. Potsdam by saying she's clearly the one into looking at Stephanie.
Mrs. Potsdam's never been to Lebanon in her life.
Someone's peeping in on Stephanie. If it's not Mrs. Potsdam, then who is it?
All joking aside, if you confront him about it directly, he agrees to patch the hole lest there be a problem. Leaving the Potsdam residence and strolling further down the street, we stumble upon another neighbor. This guy is weird. I know all of these characters are weird, but I mean, like, this guy is extra weird.
And you are?
You always were a kidder, Steve. I'm Mr. Johnson, remember? Glad you stopped by. Just got finished waxing the tucker. I could use a little relaxation. But since Edna's not here, I might as well talk to you.
Mr. Johnson is obsessed with Edna, the owner of the town diner. He seems to talk about Johnsons a lot, so his name is good, I guess.
Well, she needs a good hard penis. A fine stiff penis.
Throughout the time that you talk to Mr. Johnson, he goes wildly back and forth between being calm and being extremely paranoid or judgmental about Edna. It is both disturbing and alarming.
I'll admit DNA's done and does good business. But money isn't everything to a woman. Can money keep you warm at night? Can you wrap your thighs around it? Or rake bloody gashes in its back with your painted hollowed fingernails? Edna! Edna! So, how's Stephanie?
Yeah. Anyway, the only other thing we need to know about this guy is that he is extremely protective of his Tucker car. This car means the world to him and he is insane about it. He turned his garage into a fortress to protect it for when he is unable to stare at it all day. If you head on over to the lodge, you meet this little goober.
Only initiates may enter the Hall of the Order of the Harvest Moon.
You can't pull the wool over my eyes. I know the Shockmaster when I hear him.
So you're the man that rules the world. They call me the Shockmaster.
The Shockmaster yaps on for a while about how difficult it's going to be to get an application, but that we really should get one because there's answers to all of life's mysteries within the lodge. Do you remember when our little sister had a wasp in her crib and ended up eating a tarantula? Mom blamed it on a neighbor who she referred to as the Wasp Woman. The Wasp Woman says a bunch of weird shit about wasps. For example,
regard the wasp. Wasps produce nothing for others, but only for themselves. Wasps build nests and more wasps, nothing more. They spread into eaves and attics, not to make honey for supermarkets, but to buzz and rustle on their own paper, perpetuating their own agenda, growing stealthily, surely, the most relentless of insects.
Tetsuya Crumb, the Wasp Woman, originally had a much bigger role in the game and was part of a puzzle that will come up later. However, for whatever reason, most of her content was cut. She's actually so minor that she's one of the few characters you can just straight up murder with absolutely no consequence. Normally, if you kill or attack an NPC, they will either fight back, like when Jimmy the Paperboy shot us to death, or alternatively, Steve gets arrested.
What were you thinking, attacking someone like that, with so many witnesses around? You'll have plenty of time to think about it, boy.
Somebody help me! What do you people want from me?
Too late for that, boy. Ain't it, Sergeant?
Indeed it is, Sheriff. Answers may only be found in the lodge, and you must be alive to seek them.
Let's visit Dad's slaughterhouse. Gee, there sure are a lot of friendly kitties around here. Oh my god! We're just going to ignore that. Let's talk to the nice butcher man.
Who are you?
Aw, Steve, I didn't want to believe that amnesia hokum. Now you're saying you don't remember your pal Pat O'Reilly?
Look, I'm not kidding about the amnesia. Why won't anyone believe me?
Well, you always were such a kidder, Steve.
Funny how that's beginning to sound like a stock answer. Like it was coached.
You sure are acting like a kidder, son. With your dad ill, you're gonna need to start behaving like an adult, especially if you're gonna take over the family business.
Really, all we need to know about our friend Pat here is that he's a man of business. He states that sometimes it's necessary to cut costs to keep a business afloat. Suspiciously, he says this right after we ask about the cats. Steve asks Pat for a piece of meat to take, to which Pat says no. If Steven would like some meat, he'll have to get permission from his father. Speaking of Steve's father, Pat says he hasn't seen him in quite some time. It seems like whatever Dad is going through has been pretty bad. Gein Memorial School's name is almost certainly a nod to murderer Ed Gein. Gein has inspired a lot of horror. The horrific name for the school feels appropriate because the principal is disturbing to say the least.
You turned out pretty good. Except for that amnesia nonsense.
It's not nonsense.
Well, you always were a kidder, Steve. Maybe you need a little straightening out. Oh, the things I could do to you. You'd be a much finer young man with just a little quality time.
Yes, officer, it's that guy there. He keeps talking about quality time.
What do you mean? Quality time.
Some, like Miss Whaley, favor stern discipline, corporal punishment, as a means of socialization. Myself, I temper discipline with love.
Yeah, I'm actually good on that. Let's go talk to Miss Whaley.
My goodness, class, this is Steven. He used to be a student here at Gein Memorial. Say hello, class. They're reticent. The educator's greatest problem today is the apathy of the students.
What's wrong with their heads?
I can tell you in one word, Stephen. Discipline. Thank goodness you weren't a sulky bear. You were always a smiley bear.
Miss Whaley makes it very clear that she's a big fan of corporal punishment. All of the children in her classroom seem to have large lumps and gashes on their heads. Colonel Buster Monroe turns on the missile-based sirens. This causes all of the students to have to go out into the hallway for an air raid drill.
If an A-bomb hits, what good is it gonna do to duck and cover?
Everyone just goes on like nothing happened after that. I guess we'll do the same and head on over to the TV station. The TV station gets a little purposefully offensive, so just a reminder that this is in fact satire.
Stay tuned, buckaroos. There's more to come on Range Rider's Cowboy Roundup. So don't go away. And what's your name, hombre?
Steve.
Steve's a swell name. My dog's name is Steve.
Clearly, this is the live filming of the show that Hank watches at home. You can confront Range Rider about the violence he's airing and how it could affect children.
Violence is as American as apple pie and low SAT scores. Where would we be right now if the cowboys hadn't gone out west and butchered innocent people to steal their land? Answer me that, Mr. Know-It-All.
But what about studies that have shown that children become more violent when watching violence?
Oh, shit! Ow! Shit on a stickaroo! The parents that are griping about violence on TV are the same parents that go outside in the morning to fetch their papers, secure in the knowledge that they won't get an arrow through the noodle because the violence they hate so much done cleared the engines out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, civilization has benefited from violence. But should violence be treated as entertainment?
Check my rating, son. Violence is entertainment. I just put it on the air. If some kid watches, that says something about the kid, not me. Now, excuse me, we're going back on the air.
If it wasn't already very clear, Harvester's main recurring theme is, should violence be entertainment? Should offensive content be entertainment? Can these things be consumed without it corrupting the viewer? These themes are going to keep getting brought up until the end of the game, where everything kinda comes together in a nice little package, so we'll talk more about that later on. All we currently need to know about Edna is that she runs the diner, she has an adorable 8-year-old daughter, and she's the woman that Mr. Johnson is obsessed with. He really creeps her out, but the town sheriff keeps him at bay by coming in for lunch every day at noon. Much like everyone else, Edna does not believe Steve about his amnesia.
Well, you always were a kidder, Steve.
Edna seems to think pretty highly of the sheriff, so maybe we should go pay him a visit next. One of the first things we see in the police station is an empty file cabinet labeled Solved Cases. That inspires confidence.
Hello, Steve. Let me introduce myself. I'm Sheriff Dwayne, and this here's Loomis.
Pleasure, I reckon.
You know the drill by now. They know us, we don't know them, they tell us our amnesia is just a big hoax.
Why do you want to break your poor mama's heart with all this amnesia bunk?
I'm telling you the truth. Why won't anyone believe me?
Well, you've always been a kidder, Steve.
Yeah, so everybody keeps telling me.
Boy, you need to stop all this funning and get serious. You've got a wedding coming up soon. Heck, you should be thinking about your career and about joining the lodge.
We do pick up a few valuable pieces of information from the sheriff. Firstly, there was recently a fire that burned down the newspaper building, and he doesn't seem to think it was an accident. Secondly, he mentions that a lot of vagrants and drifters show up to Harvest, and most of them just apparently drop dead. He also tells us that Harvest has a 3-strike rule. You actually do get 3 strikes in this game. If your actions are something illegal, like for example you get caught stealing from another character, you get taken to jail. If this happens 3 times, you get the electric chair like we saw earlier. You automatically get the death penalty for extreme crimes like killing your mom. Though interestingly enough, once a character is no longer deemed essential for the progression of the story, you can usually get away with killing them. Or in the case of a minor character like little Jimmy the Paperboy, you can just kill him and take the item he gives you to progress the game rather than finding him some sneakers. It's honestly kinda cool how many ways you can go about things in this game. It's one of the things I really like about it. Like the fact that you can complete quests in different ways and sometimes you get caught, or you can go about it in a way that you don't get caught. Either way can potentially progress the story, but it just has a little bit of a different flavor, and I like that. And we can't forget about the sheriff's partner, Loomis. Loomis is a pervert. All he wants is an adult magazine, kind of like the one we saw for sale at the general store, but his mean old wife just keeps taking his away from him.
Mrs. Phelps down at the general store don't help things none. She's got them special picture books, the one with the ladies. But she won't sell me none on account of she knows my wife, Mrs. Loomis. Dadgum if that don't burn my britches. If I even ask about 'em, she tells Mrs. Loomis and I get the broom.
And boy, is he not kidding about actually literally getting the broom. He talks about it a lot. In way too much detail.
I still remember the time she caught me holding some of them pictures up with one hand. She took the broom to me. I howled like a hound dog, the broom going up and down, flashing straw and blood and straw, and I drew I was crying so bad, and it was so hard I had to crawl under the porch naked with all the black winter spiders, and I got bit something fierce, little fangs digging into my bare behind all over.
We've finally made it to the fire station. One of the first things you'll notice is that the fire truck is pink. The fire hydrant is also a little bit phallic.
Please excuse the mess. They've done wonders with the upstairs bedroom, but this garage defies color coordination.
Guys, I'm gonna be straight with you. No pun intended. The fire department is a little bit much, and a lot of bit fabulous. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do the firemen get the egregiously insensitive gay stereotype? Well, you see, it's a little play on words. They're firemen. They're flamboyant. Do you get it? Inside, there's a dog that won't shut the fuck up, and the other firemen appear to be standing around painting a male model.
Don't bother me, I'm sketching. Oh, look what you made me do!
Fun fact, I have a Dalmatian, and I can confirm that when you have a Dalmatian around, you will not know a moment's peace.
Oh, cut it out, Spots, honestly. Once he gets barking, a good piece of meat is the only way to shut him up. There you go, Spot.
If you ask about the male model, they'll show you what they're painting, and it is very, very good. Sparky talks about the newspaper building burning down and says there were a few people around town who would have been happy to see it burn. Most importantly is Mr. McKnight, the owner of the TV station. Sparky says that he has a secret safe in his office that's likely full of secrets. But I don't think we're getting in there anytime soon.
If you don't get out of here right now, I'm having you arrested for trespassing.
And real quick, before we leave, we gotta talk to the model.
I don't converse on the job, Steve.
The final character in the town that we have to meet is Mr. Moynihan. Mr. Moynihan runs the hotel and the funeral parlor. He's, not a particularly talkative fellow.
Young man, we really have nothing to say to each other. I have the feeling your innards shall soon adorn my slab, and I'd rather not know the face of the meat I'm slicing.
So this might sound kind of weird because we're a decent amount of time into this video already, but this is actually kind of where the game starts. Most of the first half of the game is getting into the vibe of the town and meeting all of the characters. Now we're going to be getting into the gameplay and puzzling part of the game. I'm not really going to get too much into the puzzles, what items you have to collect, how to combine them and all of that. We're mostly just looking at the story here. Let's get back to that cliffhanger we were left on with Deputy Loomis. Last time we saw him, he was desperately begging us for an adult magazine, but we had to wait until the sheriff was out at lunch to give it to him. We'll just hand that on over since we have it.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Excuse me, kiddo. I gotta go check the jail for clean towels.
With Loomis sufficiently distracted, we're free to explore the evidence room. There's a few items in here that we can take, but most importantly, there's some sneakers for Jimmy. That kid's gonna love his murder evidence shoes, I'm sure. But uh-oh, what's that I hear? Surely it couldn't be the sheriff coming back early.
Hello, Steve. Where's Loomis?
She'll be coming around the mountain if she comes. Oh, that's good.
Let me stab you.
Wait, no. No.
Lighting up the mattress again. Folding up the towels. Charming snake.
She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes is a very normal thing to sing while engaged in hand-to-gland combat. In the police station, we found some incriminating evidence that suggests that the sheriff was blackmailing Postmaster Boyle. It seems that Boyle had a connection to a gas can that was found by the burnt-down newspaper building. He had been paying the sheriff to stay out of trouble. Thankfully, we just happened to have Ben in the evidence room and happened to maybe perhaps have the gas can in question with us. This means that there's no evidence against Boyle.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. After all this time.
Where's my application, Boyle?
Here, take it. With my thanks. You know, this morning as I was making my rounds, I noticed an awful lot of television aerials on the roofs. Seems like more and more each day. You got me this can just in time, youngster. I may have need of it again.
Oh, yikes, that's not good. Well, you know what? I have my application. I don't care. You do whatever you want. So this is optional, but it's kind of cool that the game lets you do this. You can take a copy of the blackmail to the sheriff and confront him about it. I say copy because if you bring the original, he just kills you and takes the evidence. The copy, however, makes him give us a neat little perk.
Uh-huh. All right. You've got me, boy. Tell you what, I'd give you one of Sheriff Dwayne's custom deluxe get-out-of-jail-free cards. That is, if I catch you doing something, I'll look the other way. Once. That's the deal.
Nothing brings me more joy than blackmailing a blackmailer. Anyway, I gotta go bring this application to the Shockmaster.
I see you've managed to acquire an application. That demonstrates resourcefulness, a desirable trait for prospective members. You need a rest. Report back here for your next assignment.
Every time the day changes, Steve goes to bed and it plays a little nighty-night FMV like this with some kind of nightmare and disturbing images flashing through Steve's mind. I was just gonna cut this out, but then I noticed something. Among the nightmarish images of people getting their eyes gouged out is a cheeseburger. This game is art, and I'm not going to accept any criticisms. First thing in the morning, we stretch and head on out to the living room to check up on Hank. He seems a bit concerned about Dad.
I hear him at night, thrashing and moaning. I crawl out my window and see Mom's shadow on the shade, pot holders on her hands, reaching for him. How can she do the stitches on him wearing those? Wouldn't she slip?
Don't be silly. She wouldn't do that. Of course she'd slip.
Maybe that's why he's not getting better.
I'm thinking about turning the page and entering a new era of my life where I never ask about Dad again. It's morning, which means we need to put the paper out and give Jimmy his sneakers.
Swell! Here's the keys to the broom closet at Gein Memorial. That's where they meet every day. About 3:45, as soon as everyone has gone home. Sometimes I hide in there beforehand. And Daddy-o, I see some stuff that's real nasty. Take it from me. You made a good swap. See you later, alligator.
Oh, let's go get that scene out of the way. The Shockmaster needs us to prove our worth to get into the lodge now that we've applied. He gives us an impossible and stupid task. We need to put a scratch on Mr. Johnson's beloved and heavily watched car. After a bit of puzzle solving, you can manage to get inside of Mr. Johnson's garage fortress and scratch the car. Completing this task brings us to a new day, where Hank gives us some bad news.
Leave me alone, will ya? This is the good part. I heard that someone took Karen, little Miss Perfect, and famous. Gonna get a picture on a milk carton. Yeah, Well, I heard that Karen was gone, so I went over to Miss Fitzgerald's house and asked if I could play with Karen. Her mom just stood there, in the doorway, and cried and cried. And I just stood there, wondering how long it would take for her to stop. But she didn't.
I haven't even finished breakfast and that boy ain't right.
That's right, the little girl from the diner is missing. Well, let's see what's up with Mom this morning.
Hello, dear. How are you today? By the way, I spoke with Mr. Johnson and he's livid. Seems someone scratched up his priceless tucker. If he finds out who, there'll be heck to pay.
That was me. Mom tries to convince us that getting into the lodge is far more important than a missing kid. Speaking of getting into the lodge, we have a new mission. Steal a bolt of fabric from the firemen. Checking in with Stephanie, we tell her all about our adventures. She doesn't seem too thrilled that we're going along with some random guy from the lodge making us play pranks on people. At the diner, Edna is of course very understandably upset about her missing daughter. Looking for Karen is completely optional. If you choose to ignore the situation, she just kinda dies. If you do put effort into looking for her, you'll find her buried in a shallow grave in the cemetery.
Thank God I found you. Are you alright, Karen?
I want to go home. Could you take me to my mommy's store? Or to the policeman?
Can you tell me who did this to you?
Mr. Potsdam told me he'd hurt my mommy if I told.
Mr. Potsdam? What the? Alright, that's it. We're heading right over there right now.
Yeah, I know what that crazy little bitch said, but it's not true. I was at home that night. Mrs. Potsdam will vouch for me. Isn't that right, Mrs. Potsdam?
That's right, Mr. Potsdam. Hello, Steve. Care to stay for some pot roast?
Forget the pot roast, Mother. Pot roast isn't for backstabbers, for persecutors. I won't share my meat with him. My meat! My meat!
Are people around here getting even crazier? What the hell is going on? Also, you can confront him once more about the peephole not being fixed, and if you threaten him about it, he's like, no, please don't, what do you want me to do? And you can respond, I want you to squeal, fat man. And you can keep making him do it. Infinitely.
I'm squirming.
Squeal for me, Porky.
Stephanie's not feeling great about the Mr. Potsdam news, though she's not necessarily surprised because we already knew he was a complete creep. Now, to get the bolt of fabric, we need to finally talk to Dad. Dad can give us permission to take meat from the slaughterhouse, and the meat will help us shut up a certain Dalmatian when we try to get into the firehouse. Now, I know that this is redundant because this entire game is weird, but this next scene is a little weird. This is Dad's room. If you touch anything.
No! Leave that there! If any of it turns up missing.
Marv, what's going on in there?
Fun fact, if you break into here too soon and Mom happens to be in the room, something kind of iconic happens.
Steve, is that you? Come to see your poor old dad?
Are you my father? Really? I don't remember you.
Please. I'm not in the mood for jokes.
I'm serious. Why won't anyone believe me?
Well, you always were a kidder, Steve. Just don't make me laugh now. Remember the stitches.
My God. What has she done to you?
She doesn't know you're here, does she? Does she?
No, I had to break in. What the hell is going on in here?
I know it's a mystery to you. The sacred things that husbands and wives do behind closed doors. Maybe we should have that special father-son talk. Especially now that you're getting married.
Oh dear God. Needless to say, his birds and the bees talk isn't, normal. It's very long and drawn out and involves scalpels and barbed wire. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, we get permission from him to take some meat from the slaughterhouse.
Now go, son. Go quickly, before she comes back.
Okie dokie, we got the meat. Time to go to the fire station. And what's under this sheet? What the hell?
Jeez, what are you doing here?
Just standing here, waiting to be drawn.
You just hang out here? All the time?
I'm not a person, Steve. I'm an object. You'd do well to remember that. A person is his job. Someday you'll understand that. And if you don't, it won't matter, because you'll be dead.
I love this guy. He's charming. Anyway, with the piece of meat to the dog, we're free to steal the bolt of cloth, and that brings us to the end of another day.
You know those firemen? The funny ones with the color sense? Looks like they misplaced a bolt of expensive fabric. Of course, each one of them suspects the other. Looks like a catfight is brewing.
Mom is also a little bit pissed off that we spent time looking for Karen, and it gets a bit ominous.
I warned you not to waste time looking for her.
Am I running out of time?
The blood drive is coming soon.
What does that have to do with anything?
If you haven't joined the lodge by then, you'll find out. Still, I'm glad you found the poor baby. She says Mr. Potsdam was responsible for what happened to her. What a silly little girl.
Our next silly little TikTok prank, as dictated by the Shockmaster, is to steal Mr. Pastorelli's beloved barber pole. Now, this little prank starts to get a lot less harmless. If you recall, in the beginning of the game, we learned that Mr. Pastorelli has shitty wiring because he refused to pay an electrician.
Did you hear what happened at the barber shop? Someone broke into Pastorelli's salon and took his antique barber's pole. The next morning, Pastorelli touched some live wires that the thief left lying around and was electrocuted. Well, that darn foreigner got what he deserved, if you ask me, coming into a nice little town like Harvest and stealing business. Heavens, if a bowl and scissors were good enough for your father, I don't see why decent working folk need a fancy wop styling their hair. That's how it goes. First you get a sissy trim, then bang, you're a communist.
Yikes, Mom, what the... Alright, Mom's canceled. Visiting Stephanie today gets a little spicy for some reason, and this is the most uncomfortable sex scene I've ever seen in my life, and it's not just because of the acting.
I want you. Make love to me.
Tonight, the bake sale commences. Soon, the annual harvest blood drive will be at hand, when sacrifice will be the order of the day. Your time in harvest grows short.
Did you know that Steve and this guy actually have the same voice actor? They're visually portrayed by different people, obviously, but the voiceover was done by a third separate guy. So that's interesting. Anyway, the final prank to get into the lodge, of course, escalates even further. This guy wants Steven to burn down Edna's diner. Look, we already accidentally killed someone. Do we really need to commit arson? Welp, that's a moral dilemma for another time, because tonight's the annual Harvest Bake Sale. We finally get to meet the PTA.
What a good boy you are. Have a cookie.
Now, if it wasn't already immediately obvious, the entire PTA at the bake sale looks identical to our mom except for their clothing. Kinda like Stephanie's mom. We get a little recap on why exactly they're holding this charity bake sale, and their synchronization is admirable.
Derelicts and bums who wander into town who don't have enough money for a decent burial.
They deserve to be buried. It's the Christian thing to do.
That's awful nice of you. But why do so many derelicts and bums die in Harvest?
Don't be such a wise apple, Steve.
So I think at this point we've seen an adequate amount of the weirdness around Harvest, and I'm curious. If you've never had the pleasure of playing this game before, where do you think that the plot is going? What's causing all of this bizarre stuff? Why is Harvest so weird, and why do all of the moms look the same? I'd love to see some guesses that don't have the context of the game's ending. Now, I don't mean to interrupt that thought, but oh no! What's this? Trouble brewing and on the night of the bake sale?
Ladies, someone has just burned down the TV station.
What? The TV station? Oh my god, he really did it! Oh god damn it, I knew I shouldn't have given you that gas can back. I can't help but feel like this is partially my fault. Oh well, whatever, we're about to burn down the diner anyway. You know, maybe we should check up with the firemen and make sure they're doing okay. You know, what with all the infighting that was happening from us stealing their precious bolt of cloth. Oh, but of course they're going to be busy tonight. Well, we'll just ask this guy. Oh my god. It turns out the firemen killed him in a fit of rage. They even peeled his face off. If you recall, he actually caught us stealing the fabric, but he said he wasn't going to turn us in. I feel a little bad. But feeling bad ain't gonna get us into the lodge, so bye-bye, Edna's Diner.
Yeah.
The next morning, poor Hank is having a hard time coming to terms with the fact that the TV station burnt down.
Why are you sitting in front of that blank TV?
Someone burnt down the TV channel. There's nothing on. Nothing on.
Honestly, Hank, you're acting like an alcoholic. I told you all that TV would hurt you.
Watching TV don't hurt me, Mom. But not watching TV hurts bad.
Mom, on the other hand, is having a hard time coming to terms with the fact that the bake sale is over. Also, just a heads up, this next scene is a little gory. Like, the special effects look like they were drawn in MS Paint, but it is gory and a little disturbing nonetheless.
Now that the bake sale's over, I just don't know how I'll fill my time. Oh, I feel so useless. My goodness. What's wrong with her? My goodness. Oh, it's not as bad as it looks. You just pop them back in. See? As good as new. That tarantula she ate must have had wasp eggs in it.
Don't you think we should get her to a doctor?
What for? She's got her mother. How silly I was, feeling useless just because there are no more cookies to bake. I can still rear my brood. This is a sign, Steve. I have a purpose again.
Glad to see you're feeling better.
The characters around town seem to be implying that something terrible happened at the diner. Something worse than the fire. Continuing our string of unintended consequences, Edna couldn't go on after realizing that she lost everything when she saw that her business had burnt down. I am not going to include this scene, first of all because YouTube, and second of all because it goes way further than any other disturbing scene in this game. To put it gently, Edna cancels the life subscription of herself and her 8-year-old daughter. If you do get morbidly curious and look up this scene, just be forewarned that it shows and describes some pretty graphic imagery. Like, yes, it's in pixelated 90s FMV quality, but it's still pretty dark. The point of the scene being as out there and graphic as it is clearly to show the severity of Steve's actions and how they affect other characters. It's a very depressing scene, and the game almost gets serious for a moment. Until the sheriff comes in for his daily lunch and still eats his food right under their dangling bodies. There are actually 2 versions of this scene. If you didn't save Karen, obviously she is not present. While we're out and about looking at all the damage caused on the night of the bake sale, it looks like the folks at the TV station aren't doing too well either.
Say, can you spare a dime for a buckaroo who's down on his luck? The whole shebang just went up in flames, and I'm looking to mosey on to greener pastures, where the sunset's always golden, and there's always another savage to kill.
Jeez, poor Range Rider got Freddy Kruegered. As if enough bad things haven't already happened, Mom has some alarming news.
Oh dear, I just heard what happened to Stephanie.
What do you mean? What happened to her?
You haven't heard? Well, young man, you march right over there this instant. She's your fiancée, after all.
Guess I can forget about the meat, huh?
What do you mean?
Your dad must have pulled some strings. Be sure and check Stephanie's pillow, you lucky bum.
What the hell are you talking about?
You'll see once the sheriff gets here. Stephanie. Things'll never be the same now. Guess I'll be watching TV nights.
Okay, you can come in now, son.
My God. Is that what I think it is?
Yep, it's a spinal cord.
Is it Stephanie?
I can see a resemblance, but I can't be sure.
More pie, Sheriff?
Pie? Don't you realize what's happened?
Oh, indeed I do. I can just hear the tongues wagging at the PTA. Was it suicide?
Never heard of anyone pulling their own spinal cord out before. Off the record, I'd have to say no. No, all in all, I'd say this was death by natural causes.
Natural causes?
You can't live without a spinal cord, son. Nothing unnatural about that. Think I will have some more pie.
Right away.
I can't believe this. This is horrible.
Believe me, you get to the point to where this is routine. Now the only clue we got is that card on our pillow. Take a look at it.
This is practically a confession.
Confession to what, son?
Murder. Isn't that what you're here to investigate?
Son, you don't investigate natural deaths. No point.
Then I'll get to the bottom of this myself.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
More pie, Sheriff?
Don't mind if I do.
At home, our family's not being particularly sympathetic to the whole Stephanie ordeal.
So, was it pretty gross? I hear she was all tore up, with an eyeball hanging out. Did you wonder where the other eye went? Did you look under her bed? See it staring back at you, with the dust bunnies and the roaches?
I just heard what happened to Stephanie. What a shame. Would you like some toast from our brand new Crandall toaster with auto browning control?
The Lodge has one final task for Steve. They want Stephanie's spinal cord. But we can't just go snatching up remains in front of people, so we have to break into the cemetery's crypt to get it. At this point in the game, it is possible to dilly-dally shilly-shally too much. If you screw around too long or show the spinal cord to other characters, it will trigger the blood drive event. My favorite reaction is from Mrs. Potsdam.
Thank you for your honesty, Steve. That shows character. Go ahead and help yourself to refreshments while I call the sheriff.
You're gonna turn me in?
Of course, dear. Confessing to a crime shows honesty as well as stupidity. One thing we don't need more of. Hello, Sheriff. Mrs. Potsdam here. Steve took Stephanie's bones. Yes, he's right here. The sheriff says hello, Steve. He'll be coming by to pick you up. Now tell me, Dwayne, how have you been?
What the hell are you doing?
I told you, if you were still in harvest for the annual blood drive. You have to donate.
What's happening here? Have y'all lost your minds?
But if you're a good boy and you hurry up, it's finally time to see inside the lodge.
Ah, you're here. Excellent. You'll find them through that door.
Excuse me?
You are the exterminator, are you not?
No.
In that case, I'm afraid you'll have a hard time of it, sir. Recently, the lodge has become infested by pests. They need exterminating, or, to be blunt, sir, they need killing.
Now, since we're focusing on the story, I'm honestly gonna skip a lot of what happens in the lodge because almost all of it is just combat or puzzles. Also, there's giant buttholes in here. There are some really interesting rooms in this combat section of the game, and I'd highly recommend looking up a full playthrough just to see them. They get very weird. Inside the lodge, there's also twisted versions of people we've met around Harvest.
Oh dear. You're not a member, are you? You're an initiate. Forgive me, I can't say another word about it.
Can you tell me anything that might help me?
Not really.
There's also a particularly obnoxious puzzle where you have to find the 1 pixel of key hidden in this image.
I am the chess master. Any initiate who wishes to pass this way must do so over my dead body. Being a civilized man, I offer my opponents a choice. Solve my problem or fight me to the death. Do you know how to play chess?
Yeah, fuck that, buddy. We're not playing chess. Just give me the key. I'm just gonna grab that, thank you. Interestingly, this last portion of the game actually does present you with violent versus non-violent choices, but it's always easier to just pick the gruesome route. This is by design. Also, if you hit this specific enemy with a specific weapon, the whip, you get a cool 6-second scene. Justification of Steve's actions kinda degrade as you go. For example, there's this janitor that politely asks him a few times to stop walking on his clean floor, but you just have to keep pushing his buttons.
You think just because I'm a janitor I got no pride? That's all I got to do all day is clean up after you rich bastards? Take a hike before you get hurt! All right, buddy. You asked for it.
The layout of the lodge can be difficult to navigate and very disorienting, and almost none of the rooms have anything to do with each other. After a zillion of these nonsensical rooms, you find yourself at the final trial of Harvester. This trial consists of rooms that the game refers to as temples. Each temple has a social commentary type of point or theme.
This is the temple of the mystery of abstinence. Do not eat of the food or you will be punished. All within are hereby bound to a vow of abstinence.
Operate the hamburger. Ah, fuck, I wasn't ready for this. I don't have any health. This next room is, in my opinion, the most disturbing temple. There's a young mother laying on the floor of a bloody room with her children sitting around ripping her flesh.
Shocked? This is the mystery of motherly love. Everyone says motherhood is fulfilling, when in reality, it's draining.
The commentary of this room is pretty obvious. Sometimes people act like being a parent is something you're to be exclusively grateful for, to the point of ignoring how draining or difficult it can be.
You don't know the half of it.
The mother allows damage to herself to provide for her children, who we then murder all of them because they attack us. You saw that, they attacked first.
Welcome to the Temple of the Mystery of Religion. The mystery is thus. Those who preach love and mercy in God's name are often those who call for the death of heathens. Do you believe in God, my son?
Nope.
Heretic! You have not seen the light, my son. But we shall open your eyes, even if we must shut them first.
Again, another obvious commentary. Often, the people that preach tolerance, love, and mercy are the first people to attack, harm, or condemn others. They'll put on a facade of righteousness and use things like beliefs to justify their cruelty to others. It's okay to be mean to people if you convince yourself those people are bad. In this room, we see the bloody remains of a murdered family.
The temple of the mystery of morality. My country paid me to kill. And then when I came home, I was out of a job. They expected me to stop? Cold turkey? Is that what they wanted? A paycheck today, jail cell tomorrow? Am I a criminal or an entrepreneur? Hey, let's find out.
This temple is commenting on the morality of killing. As this guy said, a paycheck today, a jail cell tomorrow. I also really like that this guy is watching Range Rider reruns. It's a nice little throwback to the conversation that we had with him earlier. The morality of violence is often a strange one. Everyone condemns it, but they're happy to reap the benefits of it.
Welcome to the Temple of the Mystery of Flesh, Steve. Have a bite?
Mr. Potsdam?
The mystery is this. Sometimes you have to lose some meat to get some meat. They wouldn't let me in until I demonstrated my worthiness. My invitation came after I buried Karen alive. That showed initiative.
And her spinal cord was your ticket in, right?
Yes, but to be initiated into the mysteries of the harvest, I had to do one last thing. I let them into the house and into Stephanie's bedroom.
I think the message here is that it's very easy to villainize a character like Mr. Potsdam for his actions, but it turns out he was just doing the same exact thing we were. We viewed him uncharitably because he's a weird perv and he definitely, was wrong about the whole peephole thing, which caused us to automatically assume the worst about the Karen situation. But we've been doing things that are just as bad and have arguably caused even more damage to get into the lodge. This temple is a commentary on lust. If you don't have money, the ladies attack you, but if you did enough puzzles to get the money, you can buy yourself a good time.
Thanks for stopping by, Stud. You shouldn't have picked Crystal, though. She hasn't been feeling well. I'd be sure to get to a doctor if I were you. These diseases can have pretty horrible effects, you know.
Yes, sometimes having fun without thinking of the potential consequences can be not good. This gives you an actual health-ticking debuff and it can kill you. In the Temple of Beauty, we see a beautiful woman. You can compliment her a zillion times, but when she sees herself in the mirror, she feels the need to mutilate herself to become even more, quote, beautiful. The commentary the game is trying to make there is pretty straightforward.
There. Am I not beautiful? Look at my complexion. Pale white and gleaming.
Welcome, Initiate, to the Temple of the Mystery of Pain. The mystery is thus. The simple manipulation of nerves may break one man, and yet leave another unmoved.
Another pretty simple one, it's exactly what the guy said. We all experience pain, but everyone responds differently. We can choose to take this pain on ourselves, or inflict it on the guy that's tied to the table here.
Welcome to the Temple of the Mystery of Charity.
What mystery is there in charity, for God's sake?
The mystery is thus. Any act of charity is an act of selfishness. For in any charitable exchange, one must take from another, and one is always left the poorer. You see, though I am needy, I do not consider myself a beggar so much as a taker. I require charity, Initiate. Give me something.
Sometimes people give just to look charitable, and sometimes people that receive charity can feel like takers instead of feeling relief. In the Temple of Mercy, a soldier asks you to execute an elderly couple. If you show them mercy, you deny mercy for yourself.
Thus is the mystery of mercy. Life is a competition, and mercy a perversion of the natural order. When you extend mercy to a competitor, you'll give him a second chance to beat you.
The final boss of the game is the creepy quality time principle. Once you kill him and his wizard, we finally get to see the game's endings and get an explanation of what the hell is going on.
This is always a great moment when the initiate passes over the threshold and becomes a brother.
Stephanie?
Of course you do. There are no such things as monsters. And yet, you've killed monsters. Everything in Harvest is just slightly askew. This is because, as advanced as our technology is, we cannot make the sim any better than this. The subject's subconscious always warps it in unpredictable ways.
Sam?
This is nothing more than a virtual reality designed by the Harvesters to test potential members. Having successfully completed the program, you have earned the right to become a Harvester.
What the hell is a Harvester?
The hand that grips the knife that stabs, the ones who move amid the crop and harvest the fruit.
You're talking about people. Killing people.
Again and again and again, I believe the technical term is serial killer. The Harvesters seek to perpetuate terror and discord for our own purposes. We do this through the random utility of murder, and we persevere through our recruitment of initiates like yourself.
You want me to become a serial killer?
From here, there are two endings available. But yes, essentially the twist is that the town of Harvest is a simulation built by an evil organization. This organization is trying to use virtual experiences to desensitize people to commit violence and murders in real life. It's a simulator to train serial killers. I'm sure you can plainly see the satire about video games there. Again, the running theme of this game revolves around violence as entertainment. The sergeant explains that the only two real people in Harvest are Steve and Stephanie. They are experiencing this simulation with their real bodies hooked up to a VR. Steve has two choices: reject the Harvesters and live eternally in this simulation, or kill Stephanie and become a serial killer in real life.
No. You couldn't kill me. These Harvesters, they put people through this torture to give them a taste for killing. The way to beat them is to deny them, to live out your life here with me. You're thinking about killing me, aren't you? Didn't you hear what he said? I do exist. If you kill me here, I'll die for real. And I'll feel all the pain, all the terror, because I'm real.
Well, after all, what's a murder without pain and terror? We will feed the pain impulses directly into her brain and then pull the plug. You will be a murderer.
going to take a look at the saving Stephanie ending first, as it's the killing Stephanie ending that is the most important and finishes up the game's commentary.
You disappoint me. You had possibilities.
I'd rather die than become as twisted as you.
You've made your choice and succeeded in your quest. Enjoy the life you've chosen, such as it is.
What a waste. This kid could have been something.
Never looked back. We got 2 more to plug in.
There's gotta be a better way to develop these serial killers.
This is scientific. You want we should go back to the old way?
What old way?
Good breeding.
The price of leaving the lodge for good is the same as the cost of getting in: a skull and spinal cord. Here's what happens if you choose to kill Stephanie.
Wow, that was neat.
Welcome to our order, brother.
Where are you going?
Nowhere. Nowhere at all.
What are you doing, son?
Playing Harvester.
That thing? I looked at it the other day. The very thought. Breeding serial killers. It's disgusting.
It's cool.
You'll rot your mind playing games like that. Don't you know people who watch violence become violent themselves?
That's bullshit, Mom.
No, it isn't. Why do you think they started cutting the violence out of those Roadrunner cartoons?
Roadrunner cartoon. Roadrunner cartoon?
So there you have it. That is Harvester. Now let's get to answering the question, why is Harvester? Harvester was originally meant to come out in the heat of the congressional hearings over video game violence in the early 90s. In 1994, the ESRB was formed to give ratings to games so that parents could be warned of mature content. The 2 video games, of course, that spawned all of this were Night Trap and Mortal Kombat. This is why the skull and spinal cord are a recurring theme in Harvester. Steve triumphantly ripping out Stephanie's spine is directly mocking the Mortal Kombat panic. Unfortunately, Harvester wouldn't be able to release until 2 years after all of this morality of violence in games commotion. By the time it hit the shelves, people had already accepted video game ratings, and violence in games wasn't really as much of a controversial hot topic. I really think that if Harvester had managed to come out right at the perfect time, it would have caused an absolute ruckus. On my physical copy of the game, there's a little dust sleeve that has text on the back that says, "Harvester is the first title for mature audiences only." Well, this is a remnant of their original intention, but it's definitely not true. The first batch of M-rated games by the ESRB came out long before Harvester, the most infamous of which was Doom. Now, is Harvester a good satire of the 90s violence in games panic? Yes, I firmly believe that it is. I've heard the criticism before that Harvester is just a topical cash grab, that they only made it to ride the violence controversy. While yes, clearly it is meant to ride the controversy, I couldn't possibly say that it's bad or just purely some kind of cash grab. The amount of effort that went into the branching dialogue options, the many ways that you can complete quests based on your playstyle, the dozens of FMV scenes that only pop up in really specific circumstances that most people never see, those don't really seem like things that would be in a game that a development team really didn't care about. I love the unsettling atmosphere in this game, and I think it's really charming and creative. I think it's done incredibly well. This is easily one of the most memorable and unique games I've ever played. Another criticism I hear is that people will complain that the plot has holes or that it's annoying that everything turned out to be fake, and I'd argue that that's not the point. The ending being airtight isn't the purpose of the game. Satirizing the mentality that video games cause people to become violent is the purpose. We literally see Steve kill people in a virtual reality, aka play a video game, and come out the other side willing to murder and eat people. It's supposed to be a dumb jump in logic because that mentality against video games is dumb. That isn't to say having concerns in general about violence or problematic content is dumb. It's not a black and white subject. There are studies that do link video game violence to exacerbating violent tendencies in already violent people. People with a questioning mentality are not the type of people that this game is satirizing, though. Harvester is satirizing the self-righteous people that thought D&D was going to turn society to Satan, that Mortal Kombat was going to forge children into weapons of violence en masse, that Night Trap would normalize voyeurism on a societal scale. This fictional moral panic has never really gone away. Sexual content in media, for example, has a bit of a double standard, as does fictional insensitivity. We could have a villain that violently murders and tortures people by the hundreds, but if they say something a little bit insensitive with their words, that causes pearl clutching. There's a little optional side scene you can have with Range Rider. If you show him a picture of Mrs. Whaley and the principal going to Pound Town in the broom closet, he sums up this double standard quite nicely.
Say, you're a game little buckaroo, aren't you? The FCC would tan my hide if I put that on the air, but thanks for showing me anyhow.
The FCC won't allow this, but they don't mind Indians being eviscerated?
Violence isn't dirty like sex, cowpoke. Folks would stand for a shootout in the street, but poking in the street? Well, if you can't see the difference, I can't help you. But thanks for the news. Hold on just a sec. We're back with a news flash, buckaroos. Steve has found out that Mr. Harrell and Miss Whaley have been playing pee-pee in the broom closet at Gein Memorial. Stay tuned for further developments as soon as Steve can get some more dirty pictures.
Content that would be bad or considered adult in real life should have ratings, warnings, and age restrictions. However, with those things in place, that type of content should be allowed. Those warnings can give the audience or their parents the ability to choose for themselves if that type of content is too much for them or not. Of course, there are limits and there are some things that could go too far, but I think fiction is a great way to explore things that aren't possible or that aren't good in real life. I don't think that fiction should be demonized for portraying or acknowledging evil things. And as someone that loves horror content, I certainly don't think fiction should be morally pure sunshine and daisies all the time. I hope we can see more games like Harvester in the future. A game that's edgy, shocking, makes a point, and is incredibly memorable. A game that took risks and fell flat on its face, but took risks nonetheless. And because I didn't mention this till the very end, because I didn't know where the hell else to bring it up, yes, I am aware of what happened to Steve's actor. Not the voice of Steve, but the physical actor. He's real life disgusting. Well, now this is a little bit of an awkward segue, but be sure to check the description below for some links. We have a friendly Discord where we have monthly contests and game tournaments. We also chill, hang out, and we would love to have you. I also have a Ko-fi link where you can send a tip one time or monthly to help support the channel and make it possible for me to have more time to work on these videos for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Roadrunner cartoon. Roadrunner cartoon?